Feels like a while since I've done any work on these, to be fair, because we're quite busy last weekend. Now it's my day off again, and we have got my two pieces made, my L and my Z. There is no hiding the rustic charm, especially having to reattach that bit. And now I'm just faced with a whole bunch of sanding to try and get these down nice. This rubber matting is actually really good for sanding small pieces, so I don't need to clamp it down or anything. Effectively, there's enough grip there that it doesn't move at all, so not a bad little tip, this stuff. It doesn't last forever, it wears out, but it's about $2 a roll from Bunnings, so a nice addition. Now the Finihing sander struggles a little bit with the curves. One day we'll have a rotating, oscillating sander, but for the moment I've got to clamp down my drill, should buy a vise too I suppose, and install one of these little sanding discs on there. The other good thing is, tiny baby little clamp. Actually gives me really fine control over how fast I want it to turn. I was kind of tired of my Ryobi cutting bench sliding around every time I tried to do anything on it, especially when there were sawdust particles all over the floor. So, a little bit of rubber matting there, and that seems to be a lot more stable. Hopefully keep that in place and a bit safer too. Yet another thing I suck at, hinges. So it's time to get these installed. I'll take them out again to finish, but all I'm trying to do, so I don't know how to do this properly, I've decided not to mortise them in, not going to bother. Lining them up along that slightly curved edge. Nice and flush, and I've used my awl to mark the centres. I'm going to do some pilot holes because I am so close to the edge here where those three marks are. Drive them in. Tape depth. And because these are such small screws, I'm going to manually drive them. So the first three are in. Seems to function okay. This is where I never know what I'm doing. Do I hold them together really close? Or do I leave a small gap there to allow the operation of the hinge? I think because I've rounded over those edges, that hinge is actually going to sit in there pretty well. I think the roundovers are going to allow me to operate it flush. So for the moment, we will go with the tight fit and mark out and do the same here. You can get self-centering bits, which would be fairly useful in this situation. I'm going to wing it. Now we pray. Brass is really soft, so you do have to be careful not to strip them. There we go. So it's sitting a little bit proud, but it closes quite nicely. The last part of the build for this stand, I just nipped upstairs and measured out with the ukulele a comfortable distance, effectively, of how far I want these to spread. In order to stop them from going out like that, particularly on a smooth floor, such as my router table, I'm going to build a brace to go across here. This little scrap piece of Meranti that I had left over from the money box build, and I'm going to cut it down using the router to about half of its current width because that's just a bit too chunky to sit on the back. Now I just need to trim it down, cut it in half, and I'm hoping to have basically a simple V lever. So there we go. Got that tiny little bit of edge on there, so that's about perfect because that will just literally break straight off. Sand that down, and now I have a lovely little thin piece of board. It's going to cut quickly off the fat bit, and that will give me the piece I need to make that brace. It's such a thing to cut and a bit delicate, so the safest and easiest way I thought was to actually use a handsaw. Ah, well, power tools. Can't do everything. Well, they can, but you need the right power tool. There we go. That's my little brace. Now let's chop it in half. Another new addition, I finally managed to track down and buy a backing plate and actual sandpaper for my angle grinder disc sander. So no more of that stupid grinding disc that worked very well but left burny marks because it was designed for metal. This works much, much better. It's only a very small disc sander, but again, I am enjoying having multifunction tools in my table. So I'm just going to take a path tag here, and for aesthetics and smooth operation, I want to roughly center that and just mark off a ring. So the idea is going to be that these two brackets are going to sit here. I'm going to have two dowels there and a dowel in the middle, and hopefully they should go like that. However, the only dowels I currently have are 8mm, and they are far too big. If I drill that hole, this piece is just going to explode. So I'm going to try and turn these 8mm dowels into about 5mm dowels. I'm going to start by roughing out some of that meat. Now I've got the rough shape that I need on the dowels. Simply going to chuck them up in the drill. Try to get them spinning nice and balanced. Not too bad. Bit of sandpaper. Bit of tension. So I've clamped down both of my little divider bits, and it's going to do some pilot holes. Second pilot hole, third pilot hole, and I completely split it. Bugger me. You know what? Let's try this. Bit of glue, bit of clamp. Because I don't really want to remake that. After splitting the last one, I ended up drilling these holes by stepping up in every single drill bit that I have to get the desired diameter, which I believe is about 5mm. That took a lot of sanding as well, but now I've got a perfectly snug fit on that homemade small dowel. So I've got to make 2 more of these, well, finish off sanding them, and hope my glue holds on the other little piece, otherwise I'm going to have to remanufacture one of these little braces. Satisfying though to have that dowel work. For the finish, I can start to get to work on here. I'm going to need a few coats of Danish Oil. I've not used Danish Oil before, but I've seen a number of people do it, and it seems to be quite easy to apply, which is very, very attractive. And as this ukulele is never going to go outside, it's going to be a perfectly acceptable finish for essentially an inside piece. So I've given that a good stir. That's a piece of the Meranti I've used as a stick, and the grain does come up really nicely. So with this, all I should have to do is get a cloth or gym sock, find a nice clean patch. I'm sure there's a better way of doing it than this. Should just rub it in. Quite subtle really, but it does bring out the grain. That is super easy to use. Oh wow. Smells great too. Terps. Looks beautiful. I took this down to 240, sanding it beforehand. A couple more coats of that, probably tomorrow to be honest. And that will be just about done. Christmas comes early to the Fixit Fingers workshop. Wifey got me a brand new Dremel 4000, and so far it's scaring the shit out of me because I suck at drawing, and that's effectively what I intend to use this for a lot of the time. And the first thing I'm going to draw on is the wifey's Christmas present. Obviously the cat's well out of the bag here, she knows what she's getting, and now I have to try and put those final little embellishments on. I've done a few quick tests. I'm going to use some stencils, spray adhesive, and stick them down, and I'm just trying to get the weight of it right and figure out how to carve into the wood with the Dremel tool. It's really cool, it's very powerful, but it does require a bit of skill, which I believe I may be sadly lacking in. Oh, this is nerve-wracking. Well, there's the first lap around the little ukulele that I'm trying to carve in here. I've not watched any YouTube about Dremel except for doing a little bit of research on purchasing it. I've not tried to learn how to use it by any means other than trial and error. And that's the first time I've sort of gone around an outline. What I've discovered so far is that rotary cutting tool, if you can make a little track with the balls that is shaped like a ball, I don't know if you'll be able to see that, then after you've got a really light depression, it becomes easier to follow the track that you've already made. So that's what I'm going to try and do here. The real trouble is when I did my test piece is trying to get the depth and maintaining a clean line. And that's going to be my next challenge. I won't make you sit through all of this, but let's see if the results actually look half decent. Well, there we go. I'm not too dissatisfied with it. Let me say this. My wife will be able to tell that I did it and there was absolutely no CNC involved. Going to give it a quick sand, literally just getting some 240 grit sandpaper, folding it over an eraser to make some nice sharp points. And getting in there. Look, the Dremel is an amazing tool. Obviously that was the literal first attempt that I ever used with it, so I'm not artistic at all, and someone who knows what they're doing I'm sure could carve a lifelike ukulele into the side of this, but you know, this is a Christmas present. It's meant to be from me, it's meant to show all of my failings, and art is one of those. However, just to highlight my failings, now that I've got that all cleaned up and brushed out, I'm going to apply, carefully, some of my favorite Jarrah stain and varnish, just very small amounts, down into there, so that when I finish putting the coat of oil over the top of it, this will be highlighted slightly. That took quite a long time. Again, I'm taking it really, really slowly. Then we can stick all this together and call it done. Before I put down my final coat of the Danish Oil, I've got 2 on, third to go. I'm just going to rub these lightly with some 320 grit sandpaper to really smooth them up nice and pretty. Then we can assemble them, wrap them, and I'll be ready for wifey. Now this has all been sanded down, I can get my third coat on. How pretty is that? That oil's all soaked in. Let's put it all together. Well, that seems to work okay. Got to figure out how much of this pin I can shave off and have it still stay in there. I think most of the time this is actually just going to sit in the upright position. So if this breaks, I can always replace it with a bit of string, but I wanted to try out the mechanism. Not completely successful, not completely pretty, but at least it works for now. We'll see how long it lasts. So for wherever the ukulele is going to touch, I'm going to put down some of these long pads, and then on the bottom for feet, I'm going to put down some of these circular pads. Just pick them up for a couple of bucks from the hardware store. That's not going anywhere. All right, I'm going to trim down that plug, and I think we're done. Well, there you have it. I didn't actually film anything after that last little set, so here are some lovely photos of the finished ukulele stand in action. Trials and tribulations as usual with any project, but again, I've learnt heaps, and this is the first thing I have actually completed using solid hardwood, and I'm pretty happy with the results, and fortunately, the wife was too. It now lives in our living room, and it keeps the Yuki nice and safe. That's all for this week. Glad I got it done in 2 parts instead of 5. Next up, we'll have another quick tip on another Craig product, and then we can go back to that Australian path tag holder. Catch you soon.